Watching Reality Check. Tonight, the farmers' protest has led to an intense focus on MSP or minimum support price. This is a floor price which the government sets for 23 crops, of which it buys primarily two crops, wheat and rice, from farmers. The protesting farmers fear that the new farm bills will dilute government-run mandis, where the government makes most of its wheat and rice purchases, and therefore will dilute the MSP system itself. And they've asked that the MSP should be made a legal right. In response, supporters of the bill have argued that the MSP will remain, but that the farmers who are making these demands are mainly big farmers, mainly from Punjab and Haryana, who've cornered government purchases, which is why they're feeling threatened. The bill supporters have argued that because of this government quote-unquote pampering, these big Punjab and Haryana farmers grow far too much rice and wheat, which is hurting rural ecosystems and distorting India's food grain stock. But a group of scholars, Ritika Kheda, Sudha Narayanan and Prankur Gupta, have sifted through the data on minimum support price using the National Sample Survey and also data from the Food Corporation of India. Their findings challenge many of the commonly held assumptions surrounding how MSP works and who it really benefits. Let's look at the first myth, that the MSP only benefits or largely benefits farmers in Punjab and Haryana. The fact is, the data shows that MSP procurement from other states has actually doubled. Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh, Orissa, these are states which have seen a big rise in government procurement as the government has expanded its procurement basket. The second myth is that only big farmers benefit from MSP. Well, the facts suggest that only 1 to 3% of those who got minimum support price were large farmers. 50 to 70% of those who sold to the government at support price were in fact small and marginal farmers. So that is something which is also a myth. And then the third myth, that Punjab and Haryana need to escape this wheat-rice trap. They're simply growing too much wheat and rice. But the fact is, amongst all the cultivators in Punjab, between 21 to almost 40% didn't grow paddy, rice or wheat. And finally, the fourth myth, that only a small percentage of farmers benefit from MSP. The figure that does the rounds more often is that only 6% of farmers benefit from support price, so it doesn't impact that many farmers. The fact is this, that 6% pertains to all paddy and wheat farmers, those who sell their crops, but also those who don't, who basically consume it for themselves. But if you look at the farmers who just sell their crops, then that figure is much higher. That is, a much higher percentage of people who are actually selling their crops, getting the MSP, becomes almost close to 10 to 12%. So that is the crucial myths of the MSP, which the facts at least don't quite seem to measure up. Okay, let's go across to our panel. We have with us Sanjeev Kumar Chadha, who's the MD of the National Agricultural Marketing Federation, NAFED, the government body. We also have with us Jagmohan Singh Patiala, State General Secretary of the Bharatiya Kisan Union, the Konda, who's one of the protesting farmers. Siraj Hussain, former Secretary Agriculture, Government of India, is with us. And let me start with Sudha Narayanan, agricultural economist and one of the authors of that report. So, Sudha Narayanan, in a sense, many of the arguments that have been made, as I pointed out in my introduction, about the assumptions about minimum support price used in the context of these protests, that these protesters are mostly big farmers, they're mostly from Punjab and Haryana, because that's really where the states which are getting the benefits of support price. Your data, the data that you and others have collected, challenges that.
That's right. And I think you spelled it out quite clearly. The critical myths that we are trying to say kind of, we are trying to say that we have to distill the facts from the data that we have. And one is that more people do benefit. And I'm glad to see the NAFED representative here, because they themselves do a lot of procurement for oil seeds and pulses. So one is, we are talking only about pardoned wheat. And when you look at marketed surplus of those who sell, the proportion is much higher. The geography of procurement has changed. And I think there it's a fairly under-researched subject. And I would point out that procurement is not monolithic. Several agencies are involved. It's been decentralized. Sure. And the way in which procurement happens today is so diverse that we should actually expand the way we think about MSP and procurement, and how we can design systems that are participative of smallholders.
Okay. But the main, I think the point here is that the reason why farmers are so agitated about the MSP is because I think, as this data shows, that it is fairly widespread. It is benefiting a lot of small and marginal farmers. And I think one of your data points also showed that basically wherever the government is procuring those crops, or those farmers tend to get a much better deal, a much better price than those who don't, which is why this whole constant agitation and this constant stress over MSP that farmers have.
Yeah, I have two things to say there. So I see the call for a legal guarantee of MSP as a call for remunerative prices that cover costs, and as an insurance mechanism against price volatility. And when you see it in that light, the MSP actually has benefits in two ways. One is a credible MSP where I go and procure and I pay MSP to farmers. Right. But there is also an indirect effect. As soon as there is a reasonable degree of, you don't have to procure from every farmer, but the fact that you announce a price and there is a procurement mechanism actually acts as a benchmark for farmers and strengthens the way in which they can negotiate. Right. They will use MSP as a reference price. And again, we know very little about these indirect benefits of MSP.
Okay. But the point though is, and Jagmohan Singh ji, आप हमारे साथ हैं, कि ये जो आंकड़े बता रहे हैं कि कहा जाता है कि सिर्फ पंजाब हरियाणा के बड़े किसान हैं, उन्हीं को एमएसपी का बेनिफिट मिलता है, लेकिन इससे तो दिख रहा है कि छोटे किसान, सिर्फ 1 या 3% बड़े किसानों को एमएसपी का बेनिफिट मिलता है। ऑलमोस्ट 70% छोटे किसानों को मिल रहा है। तो आपके आंदोलन में बड़े किसान ही नजर आएंगे या छोटे किसान भी हैं जो इस आंदोलन में आए हैं?
From last 40 years हम एमएसपी का जो बेनिफिट है, ये यानी कि हमने कोई डिमांड नहीं किया था। ये ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन के साथ ही यानी अनपढ़ को भरने के लिए जो फूड सिक्योरिटी का मामला था सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट का, उसके लिए हमको एमएसपी दिया। इनको लीगल राइट अभी तक नहीं दिया, हम डिमांड कर रहे हैं, लीगल राइट नहीं दे रहे। लेकिन ये हरियाणा और पंजाब का जो हमारी यानी धरती है, जमीन है, जो हमारा वाटर लेवल है और जो हमारा पोल्यूशन है, हम यानी सबसे पहले ह्यूमनिस्ट है, उसके बाद फार्मर है। हमारा पोल्यूशन भी खराब किया, हमारा पानी भी खराब किया और हमारा धरती भी खराब किया। 40 ईयर से हम अनपढ़ को पढ़ रहे हैं और अब ये बिग फार्मर की बात कर रहे हैं। यानी औसतन यानी जो अंडर कल्टीवेशन होल्डिंग है पंजाब और हरियाणा में 6 एकड़ है और दूसरे में 4 या 3 या कई स्टेट में 2 एकड़ है। ये अलग बात है, होल्डिंग हमारे पास ज्यादा है, ये फैक्ट है। लेकिन हमको बिग फार्मर कहना गलत बात है। ऐसा कोई बात नहीं है। यानी 70 एकड़ के ऊपर किसी के पास जमीन नहीं है। यानी ये हमारे पर ब्लेम लगाया जा रहा है। 39% जो परचेज होता है फूड सिक्योरिटी के लिए, जो पंजाब और हरियाणा से ही होता है। और ये यानी इन्होंने आज से 10 साल पहले डाइवर्सिफिकेशन करना था। यानी जो चावल पैडी है, पैडी हमारा को खुराक नहीं है, हम इतना पैदा करते हैं, ये हम खाते नहीं है, लेकिन हम देश के लिए और जो मतलब अंडर बीपीएल है, पब्लिक डिस्ट्रिक्ट में लिए, उसके लिए आप पैदा करते हैं। गवर्नमेंट का स्कीम था, गवर्नमेंट ने प्लान किया और ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन आया और पीएयू यानी एग्रीकल्चर बना। ठीक है, बात ये है कि हम पर ब्लेम लगाया जा रहा है कि अब रिच पेजेंट है। जो भी एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर से हमारा 80% पीपल्स है, चाहे वो मार्केटिंग में है, चाहे वो एग्रीकल्चर लेबर है, चाहे वो पुअर पीजेंट है, चाहे वो मार्जिनल पीजेंट है, सभी इसमें इन्वॉल्व है। रिवर्स टेंडेंसी के तहत जैसे मैं हूँ, मेरे पास यानी 5 एकड़ से कम जमीन है, लेकिन मेरे जो भाई हैं वो यानी मैं तो फुल टाइम यानी सोशल वर्क करता हूँ फॉर फार्मर्स वेलफेयर, यानी
तो सब लोग इन्वॉल्व हैं। ठीक है, आपकी पॉइंट है कि सब इन्वॉल्व हैं, इट्स नॉट जस्ट बिग फार्मर्स। और आप ये भी कह रहे हैं, एक सेकंड, हाँ मैं समझ गया आपकी बात, आप ये भी कह रहे हैं कि एज फार एज डाइवर्सिफिकेशन इज कंसर्न्ड, व्हाई ब्लेम इट ऑन अस that we are only producing rice and wheat? Government can diversify, pick up other crops, and maybe farmers will grow other crops. But Sanjeev Kumar Chadha, I think the main point is that everything is pointing to, so the entire thrust and focus of the bill seems to be that we will quote unquote liberate farmers from this mandi middleman kind of trap and being tied only to the government pricing system. While all the evidence, the data, the farmers' voices seems to suggest the opposite. They don't want less mandis and less middlemen and less government support. They want more of it.
Vasu, thank you for having me on the program. As Sudha, she has pointed out, NAFED, we procure pulses and oilseeds from the farmers at MSP. So, when we think of diversification, I think that is the solution. I'll just give you one statistic. In last 5 years, 6 years, we have procured around 1 lakh metric ton of pulses in the country. This is historic, first time it has happened. And previous 5 years, if you compare, it was only 2 lakh metric tons. So our focus on pulses has made India self-sufficient so far as major pulses are concerned. We are no longer importing major pulses now in the country to the extent we were doing earlier.
Procuring?
So the
no, but are you procuring enough for? Well, it's great that we've started procuring much more pulses. The government is procuring, but is it at a scale enough where it can
that's
actually
why I'll just
start
tell you,
changing?
No.
Can it help farmers diversify?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll just tell you, when we started, it was around 2% of the production was being procured. Now we are procuring around 15 to 20%. In last 5 years, we have achieved this. And MSP of pulses and oilseeds is almost 4 times, 5 times compared to wheat and paddy. So this is, I think, a solution. We must diversify. Our farmers in the Green Revolution area must diversify from these 2 crops which they are obsessed with, and they should diversify. Then only their income will be increasing.
That may be fair enough.
And government has assured that pulses and oilseeds, yes,
that
pulses
may be
and
fair
oilseeds
enough,
are being procured in a big way.
No. Coming back to my question, how does that in any way actually become a case for the farm bill or the farm bills? That seems to be a case for the reverse.
See, I'll just tell you, farm bill, it takes the mandis close to the farm gate.
Yes.
So small and marginal farmer who has never seen big mandi in his life, I think the farm bills, they give an opportunity to him to go to the mandi, smaller mandi which will be close to his where he lives. So he will be getting a better price there. And now small and marginal farmers are very large in number. So there is need for aggregation. If they are united through FPOs, they can always get much better price. Now I'll give you one example right
but
now.
I'm saying that taking the mandis, hold on. Taking the mandis to the small and marginal farmers. Firstly, as we just saw in the data, 70% of those who are selling to government are small and marginal farmers. But the problem is that's also because the government has not been able to expand the mandi system other than a few states. So shouldn't the argument be, rather than say we couldn't do the job good enough, let private players step in, the government should actually be investing huge amounts in trying to expand its procurement network, both in terms of mandis and in terms of crops that you're procuring.
I agree with you that the mandi system needs to be strengthened. There is absolutely no doubt about that. But then we must give farmer a choice where he wants to sell his produce. If the smaller mandis come up close to his the place where he lives, so what is the harm in giving a choice to the farmer?
Well, the problem seems to be, Siraj Hussain, the problem seems to be, and this is again we've debated this, but come back to it, that it's because you're creating an asymmetry, right? You're sort of bypassing the APMCs by having these spaces which will not be taxed, where you don't have to pay a cess. So it's 2 different rules. And that's why the fear that the mandis will collapse, and that's why the fear that the minimum support price regime will eventually dwindle away. Siraj Hussain.
Yes, actually the APMCs are strong only in a few states, and in many other states, most other states, APMC system is not very strong. In my own state of Uttar Pradesh, for example, even though physical infrastructure for mandis exists, however, the arrivals in mandis as a proportion of production are very low. Secondly, we do need APMCs in order to ensure price discovery for farmers. So, for example, when we want to look at the data for Bihar, what is happening in Bihar, we have no clue what is it that farmer is getting, what is
Bihar is
what
a state which has scrapped the APMC Act.
Right.
Yes.
So that is why we do not have any information about Bihar. So, for example, my colleague Shweta Saini has written an article today in which she has compared, the arrivals and the profits of farmers in various mandis, and she found that in UP, paddy farmers alone in 18-19 suffered a loss of some 840 crores.
Right.
Madhya Pradesh maize farmers 550 crores. So we do need APMCs, and we also need private participation. And Srinivasan, many people do not know that in Maharashtra there are more than 50 private mandis which have come up in the last few years.
Maharashtra, more than 50 have come up already.
Yes.
Already. Okay. I want to come to Sudha, but before that, Jagmohan Singh ji, you wanted to come in about this point about why don't you diversify? Why are you obsessed?
ऐसे है कि
जी
हमारे पिछले 10-12 साल से पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस है कि एपीएमसी जो हमारा है पंजाब और हरियाणा का मजबूत है, लेकिन उसके बावजूद भी यानी जो एग्रीकल्चर कॉस्ट एंड प्राइस कमीशन जो 23 क्रॉप्स का एमएसपी नियुक्त करता है, लेकिन 2 ही पैडी और वीट का ही परचेज होता है पंजाब में। जो हमारे प्रोग्रेसिव है, फार्मर जो पानी डीप जा रहा है इसके लिए सोचते हैं सभी है। सनफ्लावर को हम का कभी भी एमएसपी पर नहीं बिका, बाजरा हमारा कभी एपीएमसी पर नहीं बिका, सरो हमारा कभी एपीएमसी पर नहीं बिका। और इवन यहाँ तक है कि पंजाब के साथ इतना ज्यादा डिस्क्रिमिनेशन हो रहा है कि सीसीआई कॉटन कॉर्पोरेशन ऑफ इंडिया जो सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट का जिसके लिए मैंडेटरी है कि एमएसपी कॉटन का देना, वो भी पिछले 3 साल से वो जड़ी प्राइवेट प्लेयर्स जो
लेकिन जो दाल
के अगेंस्ट है वो लूट रहे हैं हमको।
नहीं एक सेकंड, जो संजीव कुमार, एक सेकंड, जो संजीव कुमार जी कह रहे थे कि पल्सेस दाल्स का जो प्रोक्योरमेंट इतना बढ़ गया है तो उसका लाभ आपको पंजाब में नहीं मिल रहा है, उससे आप डाइवर्सिफाई नहीं कर सकते हैं।
नहीं, दाल का नहीं बोला, ऑल सीड का भी पहले बोला है एक पैनलिस्ट ने। ऑल सीड जैसे सनफ्लावर हमने अच्छा किया, यानी पोटैटोज,
पल्सेस एंड ऑयल सीड्स दोनों का,
दोनों ऑल सीड का 1 क्वांटल भी नहीं खरीदा सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट है। जो नोडल एजेंसी है एफसीआई, जो हमारे 4-5 हमारे स्टेट की यानी प्रोक्योरमेंट एजेंसी है एपीएमसी जिससे मजबूत है, उसको अलाउ नहीं करती पैडी और व्हीट परचेज करने के लिए। कुछ मक्की परचेज किया था, 1800 था, उसका भी हाई कोर्ट में केस चल रहा है।
अच्छा एक सेकंड, आई थिंक संजीव कुमार जी
एफसीआई का पेमेंट नहीं दे रहा है,
संजीव कुमार जी
यानी कैश क्रेडिट लिमिट जो कानून मानता है उसका कैश क्रेडिट लिमिट ही नहीं देता।
अच्छा एक सेकंड, संजीव कुमार जी को रिस्पॉन्ड करने दीजिए। संजीव कुमार जी, यस, go ahead very briefly.
So इसमें I'll just add here that the state government of Punjab has never sent a proposal to Government of India for procurement of pulses and oilseeds in last 5 years, 6 years.
Okay.
I personally checked. Only Haryana is sending a proposal for sunflower. So that is why there is no procurement of sunflower in Punjab. So state government has to come forward. They have to support small farmers who have already diversified. That's not happening.
Also is it true that, as someone just pointed out, return on pulses is much lower than rice and wheat, which is perhaps another reason, but that could be a factor.
I will just tell you, if you take moong's MSP is 7,200 rupees per quintal, whereas paddy is almost below 2,000. So, and then it adds to the soil, it is leguminous, it adds nutrition to the soil, it takes less water, it saves the environment also.
Okay, but
so I think it's a case for diversification.
Okay, but are the input costs higher for pulses? Anyway, we'll come to that in a second. But Sudha Narayanan,
no, much lower.
Much lower, is it? Okay. What's the solution, Sudha Narayanan? I mean, how does this, especially in the context of this current standoff? What are the lessons from this that we should be looking at in terms of how the government should be responding?
Yeah, I believe the MSP as a legal guarantee won't find many supporters among economists who are bothered about tracking the budget, because they fear what fiscal commitments it would entail. And in practical terms, unless you know what you're going to do with what you procure and how you procure, a legal guarantee seems far-fetched as a solution from the perspective of the government.
Okay.
But I would emphasize that the MSP is not a simple issue. It's complicated. And we have the rich experience of various states in how they manage to conduct these operations. Like, for example, in Chhattisgarh, Orissa, the primary agriculture cooperative societies were involved. Kerala has now implemented an MSP for horticulture. And I think it's extremely important to, in a federal structure where a lot of the innovations are coming from the state, and a lot of responsibility also rests with the state, as Mr. Chadha had pointed out, that we should have extensive and deep consultations on the pros and cons of what an MSP system should look like. And it need not be MSP at all. There are other ways in which price flows can be implicitly embedded in the private system,
which may be more Siraj Hussain, is that actually a solution? Perhaps now maybe the ship has sailed, but has the government consulted with the states and tried to design models of how it wanted to implement these rules state by state, specific to each state? It may have actually been more productive.
I think more consultation with the state governments and other stakeholders would have helped. However, it is also true that discussions have been going on for about 2 decades. However, a discussion in Parliament has a different connotation altogether. Somehow that was missed. I must say that the return on pulses is much lower than the return on wheat and rice. In fact, if you see Shweta's article today, you will find that the return on paddy is about 81,000 rupees per hectare, while the return on cotton is 40,000 rupees only per hectare, and pulses would be even lower, while the return on sugarcane is 1.8 lakh rupees per hectare. So, farmers prefer a crop which gives them better return. If we want them to grow more pulses, then their loss, at least for some years, 5 to 10 years, has to be compensated, especially in green revolution states of Punjab and Haryana.
I see. Interesting. Even though the rate per quintal, as Mr. Chadha pointed out, is much higher for pulses, the return is lower, is it? Why is that? Because the yield is less? Why is that?
Yes. You see, in case of wheat and paddy, the yield in Punjab is up to 5 tons per hectare. In case of pulses, the yield is not even 1 ton per hectare. For many pulses, yield is 700, 800 kilograms per hectare.
I see.
So
Interesting.
that is why the farmers, even in rain-fed areas of Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, etc., as soon as they get water, their fields get irrigated, they switch over from pulses to wheat, because government procures wheat and government,
Okay.
Last. This is a ground level reality. This is a ground level reality.
Okay, ground reality. Chadha Saab, very quickly, should the government be compensating the hit that farmers are taking for producing these non-rice and wheat crops? Because as Mr. Hussain pointed out, the return is actually much less.
See,
should they be subsidized?
Earlier when we started green revolution, the productivity in wheat and paddy was also low. So, on a sustained effort was made to introduce better varieties.
Okay.
So, I think it's a work in progress. As we move on, as we diversify, government will definitely compensate in the form of subsidies, in the form of better inputs to the farmers. And I think that is the way forward for us, not to get bogged down, because now we are self-sufficient so far as food is concerned. So, we have to move to other crops. And one thing I will tell you is that horticulture production has overtaken the grain production in the country already. So that is also a way forward for our enhancing the income of the farmers.
Okay, all righty. Well, we're completely out of time, but it's been fascinating. Thank you all so much for joining me on Reality Check. Thanks so much for watching. Good night.